The stories that are the headlines.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Patrick Paez.
I'm Jove Francisco. It's Tuesday, Feb 6, and here are some of our headlines. The Chinese embassy in the Philippines called as highly responsible allegations that Beijing engaged in cyber attacks against Manila. It stressed that China does not allow its citizens to engage in such activity. It added, cyber attacks are prohibited on Chinese soil and inside any Chinese facility. Recall that the DICT traced a hacking attempt on the OWA system to China Unicom, a state-owned telecoms firm.
Interior Secretary Benhur Abalos says President Bongbong Marcos is unbothered by the statement of ex-President Rodrigo Duterte on an independent Mindanao. He added the topic did not even come up during their meeting in Malacanang this morning. Abalos also thinks no one would be lured by Duterte's call.
And the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA reports the country's inflation is down to 2.8% in January 2024. That's from 3.9% in December last year. Food and non-alcoholic beverages, utilities, and transport were the main drivers of last month's slower inflation.
Higher price of beer and alcoholic
Yes,
drinks.
yes.
Malulungkot si Bok niyan.
Malulungkot.
Bok Edlinga will not be pleased.
And sabi nga natin, Patrick, we're watching or we're monitoring a developing story.
Yes.
Right? It's about supposed or alleged looming arrest of our former leader or former president, Rodrigo Duterte. But it's coming from former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. At ang sinabi niya ay meron daw silang nakukuha mga information.
It's from a blog, from a Facebook blog post from the former spokesman Harry Roque, in which he said that he was called by the former president about a possible arrest on him. But if we listen to the entire video blog Jove, it would seem from that blog post that the former president surmised that an arrest warrant is in the works or coming. All of this is highly speculative because of apparent or alleged move by the AFP to dismantle Task Force Davao. Now, the Task Force Davao is an army task force. It's composed of 700 army soldiers who have been based in Davao City. As part of an anti-terrorism, anti-New People's Army security measure. So they're there in Davao right now. So maybe there are some reviews being done by the AFP to review whether they're still needed in Davao. Sabi nga kahapon lang ng AFP na kausap natin is from NTF-ELCA, he was mentioning that the NPA has been down to 11 guerrilla fronts. I don't know if Davao is still one of them. But from all indications, as far as government is concerned, as far as the security forces are concerned, the insurgency problem is sort of winding down.
So sinasabi na parang baka isa ito sa mga nakapagpapabagabag sa dating Pangulo. Aside from the declarations from some personalities like former Senator Trillanes that the arrest is coming. Or the delivery of the warrant of arrest, sabi niya. Tapos, bumisita na dito. Although, ang daming denials.
This is all talk. But what we know from former spokesman Harry Roque's blog post is that they're trying to make a connection between the two. The dismantling of the Task Force Davao, which the former spokesman himself said is said to be loyal to the former president. So they're trying to make a connection between that and developments from the ICC. But we've had an ambush interview. This is a developing story with the Justice Secretary.
Yung beat reporter natin dun sa
Boying Remulla. So the Justice Secretary was asked about this report, this fear from the side of the Duterte camp that there will be an arrest warrant soon. So the statement, the response of the Secretary of Justice is, Quote unquote, the ICC has not made any contact directly or indirectly with the DOJ. We do not know anything of what Harry is talking about.
So, denial
So,
again.
denial,
Na meron ng ginawang pagbisita
right.
at at tawag doon yung nagpapasabi na nandito kami and we're doing something. Wala pa naman.
It's a fear being connected to the ICC case, which apparently was triggered
Yes.
by a move to dismantle the Task Force Davao.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, so that's a developing story. Tama si Patrick. So abangan nyo yan sa ilang pa namin mga programa no, after this. Or baka mamaya meron ng update si Ma'am Ami kapag
From the Philippine Star.
nakausap natin siya later.
We will hear from the Philippine Star newsroom with our editor-in-chief, Ami Pamitun,
Yeah.
In a bit.
Okay, kahapon I wasn't able to join you guys for the speed test. Pero kala ko ba may ceasefire na between the two chambers?
Well, that's what we gathered last week, Joey. A ceasefire.
Actually, yun ang ano natin.
Part of that ceasefire is
Yeah.
the House giving way to the Senate. Parang take the lead.
Kasi
We'll just
kahapon,
wait.
nagsimula na yun sa Senate, di ba? Nakausap niyo si Mean Los Baños. Tapos parang nag-business as usual na yung House of Representatives. Pero parang mamaya pag-uusapan natin yan dahil kung ano pa yung nangyari doon. Dahil karoon pa ng moment of silence.
Right.
There was a prayer before the start of the session this afternoon. At ang pinagdasal nila, yung mga kasamahan nila sa upper chamber.
Ano yung mga exact words, Joey? Maliwanagan, parang ganun.
Oo, para daw for enlightenment. For enlightenment.
Praying for enlightenment of this. I'm sure it's not gonna go down well with the senators, no?
May mga bumanat ng senador ulit eh.
Ayun.
Yeah. So later pag-uusapan natin yan. Pero is our guest here? Okay, so PB.
Okay, joining us now is Jonathan Malaya, the Assistant Director General of the National Security Council. Usec Malaya, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Usec.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me in your show.
First question, Usec. China denies
Yeah.
any participation in hacking. They say they do not countenance. They will not tolerate any cyber attacks
Illegal
coming
in their soil.
from Chinese soil or any Chinese facility.
Well, I think what the DICT just said in its press briefing was that the multiple attacks that hit several Philippine domains or Philippine websites or Philippine accounts, emanated from the Chinese mainland. There was no insinuation whatsoever that this was done by Chinese state actors. All that was said was that it was traced to the Chinese mainland. So maybe the reaction may have been overblown. Kasi tayo naman, we're just stating the facts that as we saw it, we traced it, and we traced it to the Chinese mainland. It's hanggang dun lang naman yung sinasabi natin.
Usec, is it possible that if it's not state sanctioned, let's call it that, if it's not state sanctioned, that certain Chinese individuals have gone rogue on this?
Well, dito sa Pilipinas, ang dami nating hackers. No? Hackers na mga
Individuals,
na mga locals, no? Karamihan sa mga viruses that were developed in the past, no?
I love
Many
you.
of them have Filipino connections. Some were developed by Filipinos, some developed by students, for example. So, it's not entirely out of possibility that there are certain individuals or groups within the Chinese mainland who are doing this, and that was the gist of the press conference of the DICT. Yeah.
Knowing what we know of China, and Chinese society, Usec, is it possible that there are eager beaver Chinese individuals working within the facility who are doing things on their own without any approval or go signal or clearance from their bosses?
The Chinese government, yeah.
Well, that's entirely possible. You cannot control or monitor individuals 24 hours, di ba? 24/7. Kaya nga may deep web, di ba? Kaya nga may deep web, kaya nga may hacking, because this is a threat to many governments, including China and to the Philippines as well. Tayo lang naman, what we're just stating is we trace this to the Chinese mainland. We found out that the attackers, kasi makikita mo kasi yung mga addresses eh. We found out that the attackers were Chinese connected, no? Uh, and we found out who the perpetrators were. And we wanted to warn the public that this was happening. Ang maganda naman dito, Ed, is that we were actually able to thwart these multiple cyber attacks. And that shows na dahan-dahan ay nagiging
Capability.
marunong na yung Pilipino. No? We're now recognizing this threat and we're taking measures to address it.
Okay. Last Friday, Usec, the Chinese embassy here held a party, should we call it a party, for the New Year. Okay, and the First Lady was present, attended the event.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first time because the last year the First Lady wasn't present in this event. Should we look at the presence of the First Lady, the attendance of the First Lady, as some form of reproachment from the Philippine government, from the PBBM administration, an attempt to repair relations strained by the series of yung kiskisan sa West Philippine
Mga
Sea.
conflicts sa West Philippine Sea.
Near Ayungin Shoal about several weeks or a month ago.
Well, I think there is a serious effort from both sides to de-escalate the situation. Kasi kami nga ngayon, we were reassessing 2023. 2023 was really, really a stressful time to us at the National Security Council, at the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. Because if you remember, these escalating incidents, the tensions happened around February or March, when the laser pointing incident happened. And from there, it just escalated to a actual collision during last December, and December talaga yung pinakamalala in our opinion because there were incidents in Bao de Masinloc where our fishermen and BFAR vessels were water cannoned. And then we also had incidents in Ayungin when we did our resupply. So we were very pleased to see that the diplomatic engagements have borne fruit, and we now have this, as I said, a attempt to de-escalate the situation. So both sides because first and foremost, the Chinese embassy invited the First Lady. Okay. At kailangan mag-imbita ka muna, di ba?
Okay.
If you want to show that you want to de-escalate. And then the First Lady accepted that invitation. So I think that there's a sincere effort on both sides to repair the damage that has been done to the relations.
Should the airdrop also be seen in that light? The recent airdrop of supply to BRP Sierra Madre, should it also be seen in that light as an attempt not to push this resupply boats which have in the past caused some friction there in Ayungin, around Ayungin?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Our approach has been to utilize all of the operational mix that's available to us. So now we've taken a new tack. We're now also using airdrops. But if you will recall, just last Friday, we did again the regular resupply vessel utilizing Unay sa May 1. So it's just a strange strategy on the part of the Philippines. It doesn't mean that we're just doing airdrops. No? We're just doing varied ways of supplying our troops.
So are both sides, I know you said, would you say both sides are kind of dialing back a little bit?
Yes.
Both sides.
On the part of the Philippines, we've also dialed down a little bit on our rhetoric. And also on the part of China, if you will look at their statements, they are much more subdued than in the past. So this is a welcome development for both parties because, honestly, Jove and Patrick, I don't really want to be doing this for another year. 2023 was really very stressful for us in the National Security Council, and hopefully we can have a more peaceful 2024. Okay,
this dialing back on both sides, Usec, is this an offshoot of, let's say, the meeting in APEC between Biden and President Xi? Was there some form of rapprochement or warming up that happened in San Francisco? That's why we are taking cues or signals from that event and dialing back?
Well, I can't really say if the San Francisco event or the San Francisco sideline meeting was instrumental, no? Because remember, after that San Francisco event came the escalation again in December in Bao de Masinloc and
Right.
in
Ayungin.
Ayungin Shoal. So if San Francisco was instrumental, then we should have seen immediate results, but we didn't. No, so I think this is a result of a result of various factors. Number one, I think China is also licking its wounds from the reputational damage done by our measured transparency policy. You know, they're the whole world has seen, no? That our internationalization approach has succeeded. The whole world has seen how they bully us in the West Philippine Sea. So we've gotten a lot of support from many nations. Japan has decided to enter into a reciprocal assets agreement with the Philippines. We're now negotiating one also with other countries. We have one from Australia. Of course, we have one from the US. Other countries have also expressed interest to do a status of forces agreement with us. Canada, for example, the UK, France, they're interested to do that. No, so I think the strategic planners in Beijing saw that, you know, instead of weakening the country's resolve, our assertiveness policy, our measured transparency policy has actually resulted to the Philippines becoming closer to the West. So I guess they decided to change tack because they realized that none of their pressure or none of what they've been doing in the West Philippines has borne fruit for their own foreign policy.
Okay, sir, you said those you mentioned those, let's call them VFA for Australia, for Japan, and also from Canada. I understand they're also asking for. Will this push through?
We're very hopeful. The process is a little bit complicated, as you know. Insofar as the Philippine government is concerned, we need congressional support for this to happen. Some countries don't need that. When the United States entered into a VFA for us, they didn't submit it to their own Senate. But under Philippine law, we must have congressional support. So in this case, there are negotiations ongoing, for example, with Japan, between the DND, the DFA, and the Japanese government. And after that, the heads of state will have to sign that or their representatives, after which it goes to the Senate for concurrence. So this is a long process, but I think 2024 will allow us to see if any of these other VFAs will be signed. But we at the NSC are very hopeful it will be done.
Okay, Usec, baka magalit naman ulit ang China niyan. Hindi sila matutuwa dyan. VFA with all this visiting forces agreement for Japanese soldiers, for Australian soldiers, for Canadian soldiers.
You know, what we're doing here is not just allowing them to come here. This also allows our troops to go there, to Japan, to the United Kingdom, or to Canada if this SOFAs or VFAs are signed. So our message to China is, you know, this is for our own defense modernization. No, this is part of Horizon 3 IEFB modernization. It's about a credible defense posture. It's not about containing China. Historically, the Philippines has never gone to war over another country for territory. No, so don't look at us. We're not the bad guys here. We're doing this for our own national interest because we want a credible defense for our country.
Okay, cambio ako, Usec. Puntahan natin yung reaction yun noong a couple of days ago doon sa ginawang call ni Miss Can o Erin Can na i-abolish na yung NTF-ELCA. Sabi nyo improper to, pero sabi nyo rin sa mga interviews nyo na hindi dapat ito i-abolish, pero may need for reforms. Meron ba kayo nakikita na at least yung pinaka-immediate na pwedeng i-reform doon sa sistema ng NTF-ELCA?
Well, ganito kasi Jove, no? We had a lot of meetings with Irene Can, no? I met her at the welcome dinner. I met her at the DILG. I met her again in a meeting in Malacanang. And finally, we met her at the exit conference. So, we gave her all the information possible to show that, you know, we as a country, we know how to solve our problems. And the NTF-ELCA addresses a problem that is 52-year-old problem that has cost 40,000 lives and trillions of pesos lost to this insurgency. So finally, we have the solution, which is NTF-ELCAC. NTF-ELCAC has been so successful that it looks like we will have total victory over the CPP, NPA, NDF this year. They only have 11. They only have 11 remaining weekend guerrilla fronts all over the country, which was impossible 5 years ago. So now that we're here, Aryan Khan wants it abolished for only one reason: red tagging. Yun lang yung inisyo niya, and we have assured her that red tagging is not a policy of government. It's something that other people do, and if it so happens that a government official does that, kasuhan nyo sa ombudsman, kasuhan nyo sa civil service, kasuhan nyo sa korte. That's what we were telling her. There are legal remedies available. Pero tinuloy pa rin niya. She called for the abolition of the NTF-ELCAC. So doon kami na surprised and disappointed because her statements were like statements coming from the left. No? parang statement galing kay Marco Balbena ng CPP, NPA, or from Bayan, or from any of the left organizations. No? Junk the terror law, abolish NTF-ELCAC, wala man lang nuancing. So ang sabi namin, okay, matapos na yung CPP, NPA tapos meron pa exploratory talks. So it's perfectly possible that if we are able to dismantle all of the 11 weekend guerrilla fronts, we can then transition NTF-ELCAC to a Peace and Development Committee. So National Task Force on Unity, Peace and Development. That's the game plan. And we told her that. No? Pero ayaw talaga niya makinig. So, we have to also defend ourselves because the integrity of the ELCAC is being assailed. Kaya namin siya sinagot.
Okay, Usec, what's the consequence of that? If the Philippine government does not listen or abide by the, let's call it suggestion or proposal from the United Nations Rapporteur, what's the consequence for the Philippines on that?
Actually, wala naman. No?
You
wala
don't have to listen.
Because
Kumbaga, there are no consequences.
there are no consequences whatsoever because the special rapporteur is just a third-party individual which is sent here by the UN Human Rights Council on the invitation of the Philippine government. Apparently, the UN Human Rights Council requested that she be invited and we agreed to invite her. Okay? So, sasabi ko nga, I think we should learn our lessons from this entire episode. And let's be more careful about inviting foreigners to come to our country. And after 10 days, they feel already confident to find solutions to our problems. 2 years na po itong problemang ito, and then in 10 days darating ka and you will tell us abolish the NTF-ELCAC. That is a disservice to this country.
Okay, Jove?
Okay.
Last question, Usec.
Meron ba
Wala na si
siyang
Jove.
kinalaman doon sa 700-strong task force Davao? Pwede bang malaman kay Usec yan?
It does not fall within your ambit, the National Security Council. We're hearing from former spokesman Harry Roque that there are plans to dismantle the National Task Force Davao.
Task Force Davao.
700 Army soldiers.
Well, I am not entirely familiar with this issue, but I was told that the armed forces clarified today that there are no plans to dissolve Task Force Davao. No, in fact, Task Force Davao is important for the security of Davao City and its immediate environs. So I think the armed forces has already spoken that there are no plans to abolish Task Force Davao, and the visit of the chief of staff there was not for that purpose. He was there to visit the camps and improve the morale of our troops in Mindanao.
Okay. One last, Usec. You mentioned total victory versus the CPP-NPA this year. How does this square with the rectification papers that was released by the CPP-NPA? They basically saying that, there were exploratory talks. Supposedly, there was that agreement in Oslo a few months ago. But they're basically saying na tuloy ang People's War.
Yeah. That is a very good question, and I'm glad that you asked that question. Kasi I was also disappointed when I read that rectification movement campaign of the CPP-NPA. And if you read that document, it's a 29-page document. I took the time to read it. It's just a
Mahaba.
reaffirmation. It's just a reaffirmation of what they have been saying all along, that we have to continue with this war. This government is stupid. There's no use because it's a class warfare, and their bourgeoisie and the proletariat has to win in order for government to be responsive to the people. So that was why our challenge to them is, if indeed you want peace, a political settlement, because we understand a political settlement is necessary. Because if we are able to dismantle all of the 11 weekend guerrilla fronts, yung iba kasi niyan, baka mag-underground lang, no? Pag nakita nilang gipit na sila, mag-underground na lang sila, tago-tago, and then find out and wait for the right conditions to rise up again. But if we enter into a political settlement, that will mean that they're all required to lay down their arms and begin a normalization process, gaya ng ginagawa natin sa MILF now and ginawa natin sa MNLF before. So if you really, and with all the CPP NPA, if you are really serious about these exploratory talks, why proceed with the rectification movement? Yun ang tanong eh. So again, their sincerity is under question.
Okay.
But just in case this exploratory talks fail, it will not be the fault of government. It will be the fault of the CPP NPA, because they are negotiating in bad faith.
Okay. Okay. Maraming salamat, Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya of the National Security Council. Sir, salamat sa inyong oras.
Thank you, Usec.
Thank you, Jove. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
So walang dapat ipangamba
Oo,
ang dating
okay.
Pangulo.
Oo,
Kasi hindi na matutuloy yung
Wala, no
yung
such thing.
naisip nila na baka i-dismantle. It will not be dismantled.
Iiba yung purpose ng pagbisita doon ni,
Yeah, ni Bronner.
Ni General Bronner.
Kaya nga. So, makampante na muna ang mga taga
Unless there's
Duterte.
another reason for the arrest warrant, unless it's coming
Tingnan natin.
from another.
We'll find out later. May mga ano tayo makakausap sa susunod na segment natin aside from Ma'am Ami ay meron tayong bisita.
Yeah.
Na maraming nalalaman So you're still watching Storycon on One News. You just need to pause for a quick break. Babalik po kami.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group. the stories that are the headlines and the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Patrick Paez with Jove Francisco, and also joining us, Jove.
Dating kasama ko lumilibot sa Quezon City. Former Presidential Political Advisor Ronald Llamas.
Gandang
Tito
hapon.
Ronald, welcome.
Gandang hapon, Patrick, Joby.
Ipasok na rin natin kasi
na natin.
busy ngayon ang mga newsroom, so baka kailangan na natin ipasok on Zoom or via Zoom the Philippine Star Editor-in-Chief, Ami Pamintuan. Ma'am Ami,
Hi.
good afternoon.
At tanong
Good
na natin,
afternoon, Jove, Patrick, and Mr. Llamas.
yes, tanong na natin kagad. Ami, ano ang nakalatag para sa front page ng Philippine Star?
Kanina, yung iniisip namin na main story, yung purge ngayon, mukhang magkakaroon ng purge.
Oo.
Sa kanyang performance audit tawag nila, pero lahat daw ng presidential appointees from June 30 noon of 2022 until January 30 this year. Kailangan malaman nila, i-update daw yung mga profile
Yes.
at sino yung meron daw bang kaso. Kaya medyo malabo yan kung kasama lahat ng may kaso. No?
That's true.
So we're getting this... So,
Kaya lang, nakikinig ako sa inyo, narinig ko ngayon, naghahabol kami ngayon kasi yung sinabi ni
Malaya.
Roque na mukhang
Yeah.
magkakaroon ng arrest warrant for former
Yes.
President Duterte. Although he wrote about that in one of his columns earlier this year.
Yes.
Kaya lang, wala pang ma-confirm. Pinapahabol namin kung kanino.
may denial, Ami. May denial from,
From SOJ. From
SOJ at
Yes.
saka from Usec Malaya.
Si Usec Malaya sabi niya kung ang basehan ay yung pag-alis ng
Pag-dismantle.
tropa sa Davao, hindi daw mangyayari yung pag-alis ng tropa.
Task Force
Hindi,
Davao will not
pag-issue
be
lang naman, di ba?
dismantled.
It's an order lang naman, di ba?
Yeah.
Kung sakasakali.
Yeah.
Yun.
An arrest warrant order lang. So kung
Yes.
lalabas for example yung mga tao diyan, si former president, and I think including si Vice, yun ang importante, si Vice President Sara Duterte,
Yeah.
and Senators Bato and Senator Bongo, kung pupunta sa isang bansa na party to the Rome Statute, pwede silang matogan.
Yes.
Yun. Tanong natin to kasama natin kasi maraming kaibigan to sa European Union, ano?
Yan.
Ronald, ano pong proseso? Are we at that process, at that stage now na anytime pwede maglalabas ng arrest warrant ng ICC?
Yes.
Theoretically?
Yes, dahil tapos na yung preliminary examination, matagal nang sinimulan yung preliminary investigation. Usually, during the preliminary investigation, lumalabas yung international warrant. No, dahil yung third phase na yan, yung trial na mismo. So, usually, meron ding mga preliminary examination, yung warning na ginawa ni Bensuda bago nila finormalize yung preliminary examination. Pero ngayon, nasa preliminary investigation na, diyan lalabas yung international warrant.
Is the ICC supposed to announce that their investigation is over before they make before they issue a warrant?
Pwede rin hindi. No?
Ganon?
Dahil hindi naman niya kinakailangan warningan yung huhulihin. No? Baka tumakbo sa China or sa...
So, Mindanao Republic.
the process of serving the warrant. Sinasabi kasi nila na pwedeng mag-release pero sino magsaserve pagdating dito sa Pilipinas?
Well, usually yung member state na nag-i-implement niyan. Halimbawa, nung dumaan yung presidente ng Sudan sa South Africa,
Nasser.
inobligan nila yung member state ng South Africa na i-implement yung warrant. Tumutol yung presidente no, ng South Africa at nakaalis yung presidente ng Sudan, nakabalik sa Sudan. Pero pinagalitan o sinanction ng Supreme Court yung presidente na
Ng
mali yung
South
ginawa
Africa.
niya na hindi hinuli.
Ng South Africa.
Dahil kaibigan niya, no? At eventually ay natanggal yung presidente na yon for other cases like corruption, no? Kaya tayo hindi na tayo membro, so pwedeng pakiusapan na kung meron darating na implementing team ay gwardyahan naman nila. Dahil masisira naman tayo kung yung mag-i-implement ng international warrant ay may mangyayari. Ibig sabihin, pinabayaan natin. Baka maging culpable tayo sa international community.
Okay, yung implementing team na ito, this is the arresting.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. May mga baril ba to? I mean,
Well, iba-iba kasi ang ginagamit dyan. Halimbawa, yung mga sa Africa, yung mga warlords, ang ginamit nila dyan, rendition.
Okay.
So merong kumuha, apparently parang mga
Armed.
US
Contractors.
US contractors yung kumuha, kahit hindi miyembro yung US ng ICC, no? Kaya pwede silang humingi ng tulong sa iba't ibang mga bansa na willing tumulong. No, ang tawag nila diyan rendition. Yung nabanggit nga kanina na pwedeng ikaw ay pumunta sa ibang bansa na miyembro nito o kahit stopover lang, pwede kang damputin.
Yeah.
No? Kahit stopover ka lang, kahit hindi yun yung objective mo.
Ronald, ang implication yan kung mag-i-issue na ng arrest warrant, tapos na yung preliminary investigation.
Yes.
Meaning, nakakuha na sila ng mga ebidensya and sufficient testimony, material evidence, para nga i-issue yun, hindi ba?
Yes.
So medyo nare-reinforce yung mga stories na kumakalat na mukhang nakapag-operate nga dito or even by remote yung mga ICC kasi hindi naman lahat ng mga witness nandun sa kapareho ni sino yung nag-implicate kay President Duterte na
Yes,
nasa ibang bansa. Karamihan dyan nandito pa yung mga witnesses. So medyo there's some truth to that story. Anong tingin mo?
Yes, mukhang marami naman nagpadala na ng communication. Yung tawag nila communication eh. Dahil wala naman nagsampa ng kaso sa ICC. No? Yung ICC rin ang gumawa ng kaso motu proprio on their own. Tatlo kasi yung paraan para magsampa ng kaso sa ICC. Una, yung United Nations. Ikalawa, yung sarili mong gobyerno. Ikatlo, yung ICC. In this case, yung ICC mismo ang nagsampa ng kaso. No, after investigation, even before the preliminary examination.
Yeah.
Preliminary examination kasi tinitingnan nila kung may batayan ba yung crimes against humanity. No? Yung preliminary investigation, meron ng tukoy na tao na gumawa ng crimes against humanity. Ang evidence diyan, yung sinasabi ko kanina na communication ng mga biktima, yung lawyers ng mga biktima. Ikalawa, yung mga public pronouncements. Sa ICC kasi, yung public pronouncement mo is an evidence. No? Kahit wala pa masyadong katibayan. Di ba? Pag sinabi ni President Duterte, ex-President Duterte, ipapapatay ko to, ebidensya yon. No? Ikatlo, yung smoking gun. Yung magko-corroborate ng lahat ng ito. In this case, clearly si Las Cañas na labas na rin ng labas ng mga statement. Mukhang wala namang subjudice sa ICC. Kaya pwedeng maglabas si Las Cañas ng mga statements. Yun yung pinakamahalaga, si Las Cañas. Allegedly, siya yung head ng Davao Death Squad. No? So mukhang kumpleto na. Tama ka, Amy. Kumpleto na yung kanilang ebidensya or almost complete.
Pero hindi ba yung due process kailangan pasagutin mo din yung mga, yung kung sakasakala tatawagin silang defendants.
Yun yung gagawin sa trial. Ipapatawag dun sa trial para magbigay ka ng ebidensya. Ang sabi nga ni ex-human rights lawyer Harry Roque, siya daw ang magiging abogado. No? So doon na ipepresent yung ebidensya. Tapos after nung trial, meron pa diyang parang court of appeals. No? Mag-a-appeal para tignan kung hustisya nga yung naibigay. Tapos may final verdict.
Nabanggit mo si Mr. Las Cañas, ang sabi ni VP Sara mukhang bago tong script na to, which is actually, marami rin nag-agree with her na bakit daw ngayon lang siya nasabit dyan. Although matagal na yung alingas-ngas na yon na baka nga siya masabit, pero ngayon lang siya talaga directly na-implicate ng isang, one of the witnesses doon sa mga killings. Anong masasabi mo?
Well, yung nilalabas naman ni Las Cañas, bits and pieces Hindi naman natin alam kung ano talaga yung kompletong testimony niya before. Kung nakasama ba talaga si Vice President Sara Duterte ron. Kaya hindi ko sigurado, no? Pero ang usually ang ginagawa ng ICC, hindi naman sinasama lahat ng accused Usually ang focus nila yung mga principals lang. Kaya hindi ko rin sigurado kahit nabanggit si Sara, paano nung 2 years ago ang nabanggit 12 no? Hindi lang 2 senador, no? May 3 pang senador na nabanggit at marami mga generals. Hindi ko sigurado kung lahat 'yon ay maisasama sa warrant. Usually, nagfo-focus lang sila sa principals para mas malakas yung kaso. Pero mahirap i-second guess yung magiging desisyon ng ICC tungkol dito.
So yun. Okay, so while we're waiting for
Yeah.
Patrick, Mami, ano naman tayo? Lipat tayo ng konti ng usapin, ano? Dahil akala natin ceasefire na yung dalawang chambers,
Oo
dahil
nga.
nagsimula na yung trabaho ng Senate doon sa yung Resol 6, di ba? Tapos parang business as usual na yung lower house. Pero kanina may padasal Nabalitaan mo ba, Ma'am Ami? Nabalitaan mo
Oo
ba,
nga.
Tito? Yung kanilang opening prayer talagang para sa para dinedicate doon sa Senado, para daw enlightenment at saka para magtuloy-tuloy yung pagtatrabaho doon sa charter change resol.
Sabi naman ng mga congressman, hindi naman daw sila nagsira ng ceasefire. Hindi po sila nagsimula ng rift.
Parang
At
mahirap.
sabi naman, alam mo, palagay ko, wala nang katapusan tong World
Oo
War na
nga
to. Sabi ni Senator Chis, kailangan daw si President Marcos, kailangan he should put his cousin on a very short train.
Yeah.
Referring, of course, to the Speaker Martin Romualdez. So, walang katapusan yan. Pero at least umaandar yung mga hearing ng Senate. Mukhang matutuloy naman yung hearing. Although sinabi na nga nila, they're in no hurry, mukhang hindi makukuha yung deadline na July. July for plebiscite. Mukhang baka hindi matuloy.
Oo nga daw.
Mukhang mahirap i-sustain yung ceasefire dahil hindi pa naman ina-attract yung People's Initiative. Nasa lamesa pa rin.
Oo nga.
No? At ang tingin ng Senate ay fundamental at even existential yung issue para sa Senate as an institution. No? Kaya mahirap yan na mapigilan. Ikalawa ay medyo nagkasakitan no? Hindi lamang political, kundi even personal. No? Lalo na pag tinatawag na demonyo, yung mga pumapaligid sa presidente, no? Et cetera, et cetera. At ikatlo, kinakailangan baka hinihintay, ano ba talaga yung desisyon ng presidente? Siya ba ay pro-PI, pro-CONAS, pro-whatever? No? So, unless nangyari yan, ay hindi mag-hold ng horses yung both houses. No? Kaya mahalaga yung magiging posisyon ng presidente sooner than soonest.
Okay, sagit.
Pro-economic chacha daw siya. Pro-economic chacha si President Marcos. Nga
Ronald,
lang ang problema, how do you get there? Diba? Sa nakita natin sa hearing kahapon, yung mga justice na sinasabi, parang hindi yata akma yung People's Initiative sa ginagawa ngayon. And you know, nag-file yun ang sinasabi ng opponents niyang ongoing initiative na wala namang enabling law, kaya nga tinapon niya ng Supreme Court noong 2007. So nag-file just to make a point, I think, si Congressman Ed Salagman nag-file na ng bill. Yun daw yung magiging enabling law ng People's Initiative. Meaning, wala pa nga. So, bakit natutuloy pa rin ito? Yan ang problema.
Parang Ami, wala rin enabling law yung Constituent Assembly. Parang ganun din, no? Yun ang dilemma nila. I mean, who presides over the Constituent Assembly? For what?
Ayun
Who
na
calls it? Who presides? And what are the rules? But anyway, Ronald,
Nakakatawa nga, Patrick, dahil kanya-kanya lang kuha ng abogado.
Yun,
may
oo.
justice na kinuha ang House, may mga justices na kinuha ang Senate.
That's
No?
true.
Kaya pare-parehas naman galing sa Supreme Court yun.
Yun,
No? Parang itong ini-invoke na walang implementing rules, yung Lambino versus COMELEC sa Supreme Court, na clearly inaffirm yung Miriam Defensor versus COMELEC na walang implementing rules. Pero may 10 justices kasi na naglabas ng opinion, no? Na merong implementing rules. Kaya minsan yun yung problema sa ating judicial system, no? May decision pero merong opinion ng 10 out of 15. Kaya yun minsan yung ginagamit ni COMELEC Chair Garcia na hindi, may implementing rules naman dahil merong 10 na nagbigay ng opinion kahit wala sa desisyon. So, aakyat uli sa Supreme Court para gumawa uli with finality. So, paulit-ulit yung finality na ginagawa ng Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Ronald, may tanong ako sa'yo. Bilang dating political affairs advisor ni President Noynoy Aquino, no? Where is the old opposition in all this? Are they watching from the sidelines? Or have they actually thrown their weight on one side or the other?
Well, meron kasing mga dating opposition na pwedeng sabihin na tumawid na. Katulad halimbawa ni Secretary Ralph Recto. Yan ay dating Liberal Party, no? Si Neda Chip ay dating member ng cabinet, no? Ni Pinoy at si Housing Secretary.
Madali tumawid pag economics kayo, no? Pero yung mga yung political, kunyari kayo.
Yeah. Well, maraming
civil society where you know, before pag may chacha, di man matatanda mo, pag may chacha, ang unang opposition dyan is civil society.
Agad.
Right? Oh, it's the EDSA establishment.
Yeah,
so to
well,
speak,
maraming
no?
mga members ng Liberal Party na nakatawid na. Kaya nga,
Saan?
kaunti na lang. Sa iba't ibang mga partido na sinusuportahan yung presidente. No? Kaya nga, kaunti na lang yung natira sa Liberal Party.
So they're more nasa administration sila ngayon?
Well, yung natira na 7 o 8 sa Liberal Party, may 2 na nasa minority, merong 5 na nasa majority, including yung co-author ng Maharlika Fund, si Congressman Kimbo. Tapos yung presidente, si Ed Salagman, ay independent minority. So even that yung mga natira sa Liberal Party, may 3 iba't ibang membership. Pero yung tinatanong mo, yung civil society plus, mukhang malinaw yung kanyang posisyon na anti-Chacha sila, pero anti-Duterte rin sila.
Yun.
Kaya ninanavigate nila yan, yung ganyang klaseng contours, no? Kaya halimbawa sa EDSA anniversary ay hindi lang nila bubuhayin yung EDSA spirit, tawag nila buhay ang EDSA. Yun ang tawag nila doon sa activity. Kung hindi, puposition sila ng anti-Chacha. Apparently together with the church, no? So civil society plus church plus some politicians ay puposisyon, bagamat clearly ayaw nilang masabi na sila ay kadikit ng Duterte.
I guess, Anton, what's a stronger persuasion for civil society? Is it what's the bigger fear? Is it charter change or is it Duterte? Yun lang siguro.
Yung nakikita kong positioning nila ay dahil may mga threat si Duterte na extrajudicial di ba? Destab, uprising,
Secession.
mutiny, coup, secession, no? At others pa. Ang position nila ay kung darating sa ganyang klaseng moment, defend the constitutional order. No?
The administration.
And for now, the administration represents the constitutional order. So, tingin ko wala silang ifs and buts dyan pag dumating yung ganyang moment. Pero, politically, laban sila sa charter change.
Okay. So,
Pero Ronald, ang nagsabi ng defend the Constitution recently, si President Duterte mismo. Babalikan ko lang yung tanong ni Patrick. Babalikan ko lang yung tanong niya kasi ang nangunguna ngayon sa tingin ng mga tao, very high profile, na anti-Chacha, anti-PI, is Senator Amy Marcos. And that's how she's aligned with Vice President Sara Duterte na siyempre back up ng tatay niya. And it's the mother who's actually calling on the AFP, the PNP, defend the Constitution. So tinatanong ng mga tao ngayon, saan po position dito? Yung nakikilala naming opposition, the traditional opposition.
yes. Okay.
Well, medyo
dilemma, no?
medyo yung kay Digong mas madali dahil malinaw yung contradiction kay Digong no, na sinasabi niya na defend the Constitution, maganda naman yung Constitution, pero gusto niyang hatiin yung bansa through secession. Inuudyok niya yung military na mag-guardyahan yung Constitution or else no, may gawin sila laban sa gobyerno. So, medyo mas madaling sagutin yon. Yung kay Amy ang medyo sophisticated, no? Dahil lalo na ngayon, mismo si Baste Duterte, medyo
bumabanat.
Medyo sinosopla siya. So, dahil Marcos pa rin siya Kaya nga nung interview niya kay Karen Davila, malinaw yung sinabi niya, ang loyalty ko ay kay Lord, ikalawa ay sa pamilya, ikatlo ay sa bansa. So, ibig sabihin, yung pamilya, ikalawa pa rin. No?
Okay. So, teka muna ha. Magandang topic yung binuksan mo yun, EDSA, malapit na yung anniversary.
Yes.
So, we'll do a separate episode siguro or segment on that. Pero before natin sila pakawalan, isama na natin sila dahil makibalita tayo ng latest sa House of Representatives. Nandun po ang News 5 reporter na si Marian Enriquez. Marian, kamusta dyan? Kala ko ba ceasefire? Bakit yung mga palitan?
Naku po, hindi nga matutuloy ang ceasefire, lalo nilabas na yung resolution yung in-adopt up. Pero bago yun, pag-usapan mo na sabi nga timeline para dito sa usapan sa Senado. Kasi kung maalala nyo, ito ang ticket personally ang naglabas ng packet na yung filing daw na deadline nila may is October pa. No? Pero nagulat ngayon yung House leadership kasi sa press con kanina, nagtaka ngayon ang mga mambabatas na bakit October pa, yung mismo si Senate President Ligdubiri, yung nagsabi, naglabas pa ng resibo, ito si Senior Deputy Speaker Dong Gonzales.
Yeah.
Sa bibig pa niya sinabi na by before Holy Week break, I don't see any problem. Yun yung sabi ni Senate President Zubiri. Ay, napakasimple daw. So, I don't see any problem finishing it this quarter. Ngayon, sagot nila Bataan Representative Geraldine Roman, bakit daw biglang ganon? Nakakagulat daw kasi October na inaniniwala sila. If there's a way, yung sinasabi naman nila Dalipe, na mahirap pag umabot na ng October kasi their fear na masishelve na naman ito, no? Yung usapin ng charter chicks na kapag umabot sa October, mukhang maantala at hindi na naman
Midterm
matutuloy
na,
itong usapin
yeah.
ng charter change kasi alam naman natin kung gaano na busy. Ano bang meron pag October filing ng certificate of
Yes.
candidacy. So, andyan na daw yung campaign fever. Talagang yun yung pinupunterya nila. And regarding natin sa resolution, tuloy pa rin yung world war. Pero kanina, narinig na natin, nagpahayag si Senior Deputy Speaker Gonzales, nakikiusap siya. Ayun na raw sana nila nga, itong world war. At kung maaari daw sana, tama na, tigil na daw, quote, tigilan niyo na po ang paninira, ang mga pangit pakita na hindi pwedeng gayahin ng mga susunod na henerasyon. Sa inyong lahat, magtrabaho po tayo ng maayos, marami po tayong problema. Ayaw na po namin lumalim ito, tigilan niyo na po ang paninira sa aming speaker.
Okay.
So, as you can hear saying na itong ang resolution na inilabas nila, inadopt nila yesterday, nilalabas lang nila yung kanilang saloobin. Ito nga sa mga tirada kay Speaker Romualdez, kaugnay din sa People's Initiative.
Okay. Nako, so ngayon naman ang kanilang pinagtatalunan ay ang deadline at saka kung kailan matatapos. So, hindi pa talaga tapos ang bickering.
Yes, dagdag siguro dyan, ang hirap magkaroon ng ceasefire kung ang mga banatan ay medyo antagonistic, corruption, graft, electoral fraud.
Demonyo.
Oh, demonyo. Medyo antagonistic yun. Medyo mahirap i-backpedal yun. No? Kaya hindi naman kita tatawagin na demonyo.
Correct.
Walang bawian yun, di ba? Mahirap bawiin yun.
Yes, Ma'am Ami.
Marian, paano kung hindi nga ma-meet yung July deadline? Anong plan B ng mga congressmen? Kasi ang kondisyon talaga ng mga senador itutuloy nila yung RBH 6
Yeah.
kung ititigil talaga yung signature gathering Mukhang hindi naman natitigil. Paano yun?
Mukhang tapos na
Ah.
At one point,
Kapag nabinsido
pagdating
sila na
natin,
talagang walang PI, itutulak nila. Pero kung sakasakali na hindi ma-meet si July deadline, anong plan B ng House?
Yun nga, nanatawagan din na mag-usap na yung leaders ng kaputuhan sa House at Senate. So, pagkaupan, ito ang sabi ng SB86 or SB86. At in one point kanina, nakikita din natin kung paano nakiusap si Majority Leader Manny Dalipe. At sabi niya, we vote in the House of Representatives. We are pleased for the Senate to move past.
Marian, medyo choppy ang audio na nanggagaling kay Marian dyan mula sa batasan.
We'll wait for your report sa frontline later.
Yes,
Thank you, Marian.
Thank you.
We're just having trouble, Ami, dun sa pumapasok
Thank you.
ni Marian.
Medyo maano siya. Ami, thank you then for joining the discussion this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Jove. Mr. Llamas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star. So, anong top story nila ulit?
Sila ay...
They're going with, yung balasahan sa palasyo.
Balasahan talagang original ng Philippine Star, pero they're
long
leaning
overdue.
towards yung the Harry Roque issue.
Nakailang balasahan na to. Di ba? It's not just the first time. I mean, it's probably not even the second time. I think there's been several waves.
Months after nilang mapunta sa power, may balasahan agad.
Oh, right.
Appointees ni ex-President Duterte,
Right.
appointees ni ex-Executive Secretary
Vic
Vic
Rodriguez.
Ngayon ay, kanino kaya mga appointees na matatanggal?
Correct. Tingnan natin.
Yun ang tanong.
Pero, yun na nga. So, sabi ni Ma'am Ami, parang nagkaroon din siya ng idea doon sa mga interviews na nakita niya kanina na pwede rin nga yung tungkol dun sa
ICC
Harry
arrest.
Roque. Yung ICC arrest. At tabayaran niyo po sa Frontline, pati sa STL and TBS or The Big Story later tonight. Pero before we go, Ang interesting na simula ang araw na to na ang Senior Citizens Act ay binusisi sa mababang kapulungan.
But malagkit ang tingin mo talaga kay Ronald.
Hindi naman sa ganon, pero
You expect him to be jumping with joy with that news, parang gano'n.
talagang I was kinda parang excited about that hearing kanina, kaya talagang pinus ko siya dahil biglang
Tuwa ka eh.
pinatawag ba naman ng Congress ang ang mga lahat ng fast food chain na alam mo. Lahat ng rep nung pinatawag nila, sinampina nila yan. Para lang malaman, paano ba kayo magkapag-deal with the seniors on parang sa daily basis, in practical way of dealing with them. So, marami nakitang butas doon. Ang hirap ng isa-isahin. Pero, yun na, ang promise nila will improve
Are they
this.
going for...
Binanatan ko na yan yung mga previous interviews ko na binanatan ko yung DTI, binanatan ko yung DSWD, mga LGUs. Dahil grabe, yung non-implementation. Yung iba 10% lang, yung iba totally wala. Yung iba may mga promo daw. At yung iba, inaaway yung mga matatanda na ang hirap naman makipag-argue. At least ako nakakapag-argue, no? Meron diyang isang malaking potato store na talagang inaway ko, no? Siyempre, ang hirap lang awayin ng mga empleyado. Dahil yung mga may-ari ang kanya.
Ang nagbigay ng utos. Hindi, kasi ang hindi nila maintindihan, sabi ni Jove, binasa ni Joey lahat ng mga ni Congressman Joey, yung mga actual complaints na nakuha nila. Yung nakita na nga uugod-ugod. Tatanungin pa para senior po ba kayo? O kaya ay kailangan ba physical disability for you to be part of the...
Kailangan ba may ID?
May ID ka kasi, so yun na lang dapat.
May booklet pang hinihingi yung iba kaya tatanggalin na yung booklet no? Dapat hindi mahira para sa mga senior katulad namin, no? Yung...
We hear you. We
We feel you.
Kawawa rin yung mga mga tindahan, mga shops minsan.
Yung mga empleyado na
wala naman din sila doon. I mean, sinusunod lang nila yung
Kaya nga sinasabi ko, sino may-ari nito? Sino manager, no?
Yun.
So, we'll see kung mag-i-improve dahil alam ko hindi lang last time nilang gagawin niya. Although kanina, natapos yung hearing na yon, nagtatanong yung mga congressman, kailan niyo ibabalik tong combo na to?
Ganun na.
Ganun na. Dito
Basta sigurado ko, Joby, in 1 to 2 years, mararanasan nyo na rin yan.
Kaya ngayon pala dapat ayusin
Kaya
na
dapat
nila.
ayusin na. Ngayon,
pa lang.
kaya interested ako dyan, Ronald, kanina umaga. Anyway, and those are the headlines that are the headlines, the stories behind the headlines. I'm Joey Francisco.
I'm Patrick Paez. Join the Story Conference again tomorrow at 4 p.m. This is One News, all sides, all that time.
Thank you, Ronald.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.